The wind dragged across the open plains, carrying the smell of smoke and iron. A cold dusk had settled, painting the sky with streaks of purple and dying gold. Thomas Grady reined in his tired horse at the sight before him. A wagon train burned down to ashes. Wheels shattered, canvas torn, and bodies scattered in the dust. He swallowed hard. The world had gotten cruel since the war ended, and this, he thought, was just one more scar on it. He climbed off his horse, boots crunching over broken glass and scorched wood. His eyes darted around for signs of life, but the silence was heavy, too heavy. He almost turned back, not wanting to see more death than he already had. But then he heard it, faint, muffled, like a breath caught in pain. Help! He spun around, hand instinctively going to the revolver at his belt. Who's there? A soft groan came from beneath an overturned wagon. Thomas rushed over, pushed aside a broken chest, and there she was, a woman, barely conscious, her dress torn and blood on her arm. Her hair, once golden, was caked with dirt and ash. She tried to lift herself but couldn't. Easy, ma'am, he said, kneeling beside her. You're safe now. She blinked weakly at him. The others, are they? He shook his head. I'm sorry. A tear rolled down her cheek. She turned away, whispering something under her breath, too soft for him to catch. Thomas pulled his canteen from the saddle and lifted her head gently. Drink slow, he said. She sipped, coughing a little. Who are you? Thomas Grady, rancher, out by Sweetwater Creek. You. She hesitated, her voice barely more than a whisper. Clara, just Clara. He didn't press. Folks out here had stories they weren't ready to tell, and he respected that. He carried her to his horse and wrapped her in a wool blanket. As they rode, the stars began to peek through the dark. She leaned against his chest, breathing shallowly. He could feel how fragile she was, like she might fade any moment. His cabin wasn't much, just wood, stone, and loneliness. The fire crackled as he laid her on the cot, covering her with his only quilt. He poured water in a basin and began cleaning the blood from her arm. She flinched but didn't cry out. You're lucky, he said softly. That bullet just grazed you. She gave a weak smile. Lucky's not the word I'd use. He chuckled, a sound he hadn't heard from himself in a long time. Fair enough. Days passed. The fever came and went, and Thomas stayed by her side, changing bandages, spooning broth between her lips, making sure she saw another sunrise. Sometimes, in her sleep, she'd mutter things, names, places, the word, estate, more than once. But when she woke, she said nothing about it. One night, while the rain drummed softly on the roof, she stirred and looked at him. You live alone, he nodded, staring at the fire. Used to be 3 of us. My wife and son. Fever took 'em last winter. She looked away, her throat tight. I'm sorry, he shrugged. Ain't your fault. Life takes what it wants. She studied him quietly, noticing how worn his hands were, calloused from years of hard work but gentle when they touched her bandages. There was something steady about him. Solid. As she healed, she started helping around the place, cooking, sweeping, feeding the chickens. She moved slowly at first, but the color came back to her cheeks. Thomas noticed, but he didn't say much. He just found himself whistling more often and smiling when he didn't mean to. Then, one afternoon, he found her standing by the window, staring toward the horizon. You thinking of heading out? He asked softly. She nodded. I have to. There are things I need to reclaim. Family. Something like that. She turned to him, her eyes full of something he couldn't name. You saved my life, Thomas. I'll repay you, somehow. He smiled faintly. Don't need repaying. Just glad you're still breathing. She hesitated, as if wanting to say more, then simply whispered, thank you. The next morning, she was gone. Left a note on the table, I'll return. He folded it carefully, tucked it in his pocket, and went back to work, fixing fences, mending saddles, the quiet rhythm of his days slipping back into place. Weeks passed. The memory of her started to feel like a dream, a soft voice fading into the wind. Then, one afternoon, a carriage appeared on the trail, fine horses, polished wheels, and a coachman in a black coat. Thomas stood on his porch, blinking in disbelief. The carriage stopped, and out stepped Clara. But she wasn't the same woman he'd rescued. Her torn dress had been replaced by silk, her hair neatly pinned, her eyes sharper now, confident, commanding. Miss Clara, he said slowly. She smiled. Baroness Clara Whitmore, actually. Though I didn't expect to use that name again. Thomas blinked. Baroness, I told you I had things to reclaim, she said gently. That wagon train, it was mine. We were attacked on our way from San Francisco to my family's estate. Everyone believed I was dead. He rubbed the back of his neck. Guess that makes me a fool, huh? Talking to you like we were equals. Her smile softened. You treated me better than most ever have. Don't call that foolish. She stepped closer, eyes bright with something warm. I came back because I meant what I said. I owe you my life. He shook his head. Don't owe me nothing. Just did what anyone decent would do. She looked around the small cabin, rough, simple, honest. You rebuilt my faith in people, Thomas. That's worth more than you know. He tried to laugh it off, but his throat tightened. So, what now? You head back to your world, I stay in mine. Does it have to be that way? She asked softly. He looked at her, really looked at her. The woman standing before him wasn't just wealth and silk. She was strength wrapped in grace. A survivor. You belong with folks who got more than I can give, he said quietly. She stepped closer, close enough for him to see the shimmer in her eyes. You gave me life when I'd lost everything. What more could I ask for? He didn't answer. The silence between them was deep, heavy, and somehow peaceful. For days after she stayed, they talked about her family, his losses, the emptiness both carried. The line between their worlds blurred, replaced by something quieter and truer. One evening, they sat outside watching the sun sink behind the hills. The air was warm, the sky bleeding orange into the horizon. You ever think about leaving this place? She asked. Sometimes, he admitted, but where would I go? This land's all I've got left. She smiled gently. Then maybe I'll stay. I could help fix the barn. Maybe even learn to ride without falling off this time. He chuckled. You, a baroness, pitchin' hay, don't laugh. I'm tougher than I look. He smiled, and for the first time in a long while, he believed her. Weeks passed into months. She stayed, trading silk for denim, fine shoes for boots. The hands that once signed estate papers now milked cows and baked bread. And every evening, when the sun dipped low, she'd walk beside Thomas down to the creek where the water ran cool and clear. One night, she turned to him. Thomas, do you ever regret saving me? He looked at her, eyes soft under the moonlight. Only thing I regret is not finding you sooner. She smiled, tears shining in her eyes. Then maybe this is where I was always meant to end up. He reached for her hand, rough meeting soft, past meeting future. The world around them was quiet except for the whisper of wind through the grass. Years later, travelers passing through Sweetwater would talk about the widow's ranch, how it grew into a thriving place under the care of a kind man and a mysterious lady with a noble's grace and a rancher's heart. Some said she still wore a single pearl ring, a reminder of who she used to be. Others said she sold everything she owned back east just to stay. But those who saw them together, working side by side, laughing under the same roof, knew the truth. She wasn't just a baroness anymore, and he wasn't just a lonely widower. They were two broken souls who found each other in the wreckage, proof that sometimes the richest hearts are found in the poorest places and the deepest love grows from the ashes of pain. And every night, as the firelight flickered in the cabin, Thomas would look at her and whisper, "You brought life back to this old heart, Clara." She'd smile, resting her head against his shoulder. "And you gave me something money never could." The wind outside would sigh across the plains, soft and endless, carrying the sound of their laughter into the dark where it mingled with the stars.